I was born November the 12th, 1931.
No, I was born in 1934.
I was born in 1923.
I was born in 24.
Mother had all us children at home. Doctor came out and delivered us.
We were all born at home, no hospital.
I was born and raised on a farm out there, just east and north of Raleigh.
It was considered at least a middle-of-the-road dryland farm. Dad always kept it up.
That was a very innocent time of my life.
I did not realize that it was the Depression.
Dad said that he made $5 a day.
And that was during the Depression, and my dad lost the farm. I mean, food was scarce.
Back in the 30s there, we talked about, everybody was poor, but we didn't know we were all poor. You got together eggs and worked in the garden. As I said, milked the cows.
We grew corn and wheat, alfalfa.
And we didn't even have electricity.
I was an adventurous kid.
We made mud pies and playhouse, and stuff like that. Use your imagination.
I wasn't very much for doll play. We would go out in the haymow and climb up the top of the barn.
I'd go real quiet across there. And I'd get to the apricot tree that was right there, and I'd skinny down the apricot tree, and I'd take off to the northeast so Mama couldn't see me. And I'd go play, play, play.
I went to school at Bluemont School.
And went to a little country school.
Country school set on a little knoll out there, and nobody had to go more than 3 miles to school.
At one time there was 89 rural schools in Raleigh County.
Walked about a block or so down the street to catch the bus to go down to Lincoln to school.
I started at 6 years old.
Well, we had one teacher that taught all the kids.
They didn't have kindergarten, so you started right in first grade.
4 first graders a year. No, 5 the year I started.
My first or second day of school, I wanted to play in the big swings, run under them with the 7th and 8th graders, and I got hit on the back of the head with this swing and split my head open, But that was me. I always wanted to do something above my level of where I should be.
We went to high school, Raleigh Rural High School.
Oh, there were a few sparks flying in 7th and 8th grade, but I didn't like all the crazy things he done,
I just thought she was the prettiest thing that ever came down the road.
Crazy Jack Nesper. He just must not have a brain in his head.
I played football in high school.
Walking around behind the bleachers, and him and this other guy was driving around, and I was with this cousin of mine.
And we met and danced, and sometimes we went to have Coke or coffee, went down to Agville.
Go get a hamburger or something after our show and then go.
Well, anyway, went on through high school, and
I married high school sweetheart.
When he got his orders to go overseas, is when we decided to get married, and decided on Sunday to get married on Monday, and you had to leave on Tuesday.
Oh, the war was so terrible.
1944. I was 21 years old.
I was 22.
I was 19 and a half.
But once you think you're in love, you don't think all the details.
As a lot of people were getting married on short notice because...
When I was in high school, the boys graduated from high school on Friday and went to the war on Monday. One of the guys that I had a crush on, he's buried in Iwo Jima. And a guy across the street who I thought was kind of nice, and he's buried in France. And the pilot, he died at sea when their carrier was bombed by the Japanese. So see, a lot of the fellows that I would be interested in were no longer available.
He went over about at the tail end of the Battle of the Bulge, because that's when we lost so many soldiers. And so he was just out of basic, and he got sent over there because they were short-handed, I guess. And I was just thinking the war was over. I was ready to die. And Mom came in, she said, then she told me, she said, I don't think you care whether you get well or not. I just shook my shoulder. And so she gave me several things, and I was 3 months pregnant with our oldest daughter, because I decided I had something to live for at the time. We set off the atomic bomb.
Drop that bomb, he said.
how good looking he was in his Navy uniform.
Our early 20s, we had 3 children.
Raising a little girl, Mary, my little girl.
I had never given any thought really to what the responsibilities of fatherhood were.
So that was a really That was a packed chunk of time of my life. My life went in all kinds of directions during that time.
He'd been through World War II, and he had GI Bill, so he was going to school. And I had to stay home.
Nobody ever called me by my first name in the office.
Because back then, you didn't rely on your parents for anything.
And you either became a nurse or a teacher. So I took my teacher training and I became an art teacher.
Cooking and washing and ironing and all those good little things that a housewife does, probably. See, when I grew up, the men were always fed first, and then the children, and then the women.
You know, men back in those days, they was the control.
So in turn, when we got into fights along the way, he threw things, I dodged them.
The biggest impact is carried by emphasis on being positive.
When I really found out who I was and really what I believed. Then my kids were moving on and into college too. So that was another transition of life.
Took part in just about everything. We went to all the McCain series and went on trips and traveled.
Anyway, when you're older and retired, we'd travel 300, maybe 400 mile days and stop. And it was just so enjoyable to just have shorter days and spend more time smelling the roses. It just...
But as our health and everything began to slow down on it.
I had fallen on the ice at home and couldn't get up.
Somehow or other he lost his balance and fell.
I fell and broke my hip.
Stumbled on a chair or did something, fell and broke his arm. So I immediately called 911.
And I ended up here.
So boy, I called and said, my Lord, I want to come as quick as possible. And so that's what happened. I walked in, there was about 3 people that I already knew in the lobby. I knew that it was like a big hotel.
There's everything. There's music, there's programs, there's educational programs. No, and I'll tell you, if anybody over here is bored, then they are going to have to get a life.
We had a list of things. I'm taking this watercolor workshop next week, a 4-day one.
I'll go down the hall and somebody, oh, it must be Thursday or it must be Monday, you're going for biscuits and gravy.
So there's just things, when you have hobbies, there's things to see about it.
Ever since I've come up here, I've made more friends.
Her short-term memory was just gradually going.
When you're a caregiver for a long time, it runs you down.
I didn't know the stroke was coming.
He went to sleep that night and never did wake up.
And he died the last part of January. He just died in his sleep, basically.
It's not easy after living with somebody that long.
Because after my husband passed away, I was heartbroken.
And I was shocked when he just looked just like he always did. But you can't get him back.
And I remembered the stronger man. That's the one I missed. The one that died, he was ready. He was done with life. But that was hard. Because I really, really missed him.
Boy, I missed him. It just hit me that way. He wasn't here. But
I had a real good friend come and say to me, you know, Marilyn, there's a fine line between laughing and crying. And when you cry, no one knows what to say to you. But if you laugh and make a joke about you or your spouse or something in life, then we all laugh.
To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal.
To the two 20-year-olds, I would say I would be happy if they could be my children.
To hold it against your bones, knowing that your very life depends on it. And when its time comes to let it go.
Here I am, God. I hope I've done the best I could do.
Let it go.
I feel like I have everything in place now.